A federal judge orders answers to the question of why families are being held so long at a detention center in South Texas. That story and more today on the Texas Standard.
Texas Standard is a production of KUT Austin, KERA North Texas, Houston Public Media, and Texas Public Radio in San Antonio.
I'm David Brown. Other stories we're tracking. After a state takeover of schools in Houston, officials tout rising scores for schools. But are those grades being artificially inflated at the expense of students themselves? We'll hear about an exclusive investigation by the Houston Chronicle. Also, a city best known for the Alamo, a riverwalk, and the Spurs now gaining accolades for Fungus. We'll tell you about that. Plus, barbecue beyond the brisket. Texas Monthly's Daniel Vaughn on the lesser-known champions of smoked chicken. All that and then some coming up today on the Texas Standard. No matter where you are, it's Texas Standard Time on this 20th day of August, 2026. I'm David Brown. Great to have you with us on this Thursday. You know, the question of how this country treats children in immigration custody is hardly a new one. In fact, the legal fight over how long they can be detained stretches back some 40 years at least, but that old fight has taken on new urgency. The Trump administration has revived family detention, as you are likely aware. And according to one analysis of federal data, more than 66,000 parents and children have been detained and deported since President Trump took office last year. What exactly happens between detention and the resolution of cases has put a facility in Dilley, Texas, in the spotlight. Children are being held there for weeks, sometimes months, without any clear explanation as to why. Congress has never passed a law covering how long children can be held in immigration detention. Instead, a decades-old legal agreement has served as the de facto legal standard, something called the Flores Settlement. Under terms of this agreement, minors cannot be detained for more than 20 days before release or transfer, and the government must release minors without unnecessary delay to parents, relatives, or licensed sponsors. But according to new reporting by the Marshall Project, significant numbers of minors are being held much longer than 20 days. And these lengthy stays may be having another consequence. Parents confronted with a choice: continue the legal fight and keep the children in detention, or abandon the fight and get them out. Now a federal judge is stepping in. Joining us is Lauren Villagran, who's been reporting this story for the Marshall Project. Lauren, welcome to the Texas Standard.
Good morning, David.
Let's start with family detention. More broadly speaking, the Biden administration had essentially stopped doing this. That's my understanding, at least. What changed when President Trump returned to office?
Yeah, so when President Trump returned to office with his mass deportation goals, he revived family detention in Texas, as you said, at a facility in South Texas in Dilley. And, tens of thousands of parents and children have been detained there since he restarted detention. It's been brought to the attention of the federal judge overseeing that settlement that children are staying in detention far beyond the 20-day limit assigned by that settlement.
You focus in your reporting on one family in particular, a mother and her two children who believed they had a legitimate claim to remain in the United States. How did they wind up at Dilley in the first place?
Yeah, so, there's been widespread reporting of increased enforcement at airports, David. And this family, mom has a green card, the daughter had a green card, and the son had a special immigrant visa. They, according to their telling, were on their way to move to the United States with these documents. But they were arrested at Chicago O'Hare International back in May and sent to secondary, and then essentially detained at Dilley for 58 days, which is well beyond the limit of that settlement agreement.
Yeah, this is where the consequences of that long detention become important. What was happening to those children as the weeks went by? They were with their mom, is that right?
Right. So at Dilley, parents are detained with their children. It's often moms. This particular family, there was a daughter who was 11, a son who was 14, so they were isolated the whole time. But as their immigration court hearings proceeded, they remained detained. They were not allowed to leave on bond. And when the day came and Houston-based immigration judge Saul Greenstein ordered them deported, he warned the mom and said, the appeals process could take 3 to 6 months. She took that to mean that her kids would stay in detention all that time, and so she elected to go home.
How representative is that choice? Are families effectively giving up immigration claims they might otherwise pursue because continuing the legal process means having to keep their children in detention?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm hearing from immigrant advocates and attorneys that is exactly what's happening. In past administrations, when there has been family detention under both Democrats and Republicans, often you saw alternatives to detention, like an ankle monitor used. Families may have been released on bond, or they may have been, sort of returned summarily rather than being detained for this extensive period. And that fight has moved to the courts. U.S. District Judge Dolly G., who oversees the settlement in California, has appointed an independent monitor to review the lengths of stay and the conditions in family detention.
How extraordinary is that step to appoint an independent monitor?
Look, I'm told it's a big deal. The last time that we saw an independent monitor over the conditions of detention for children was back in Trump 1, when we saw 6 kids die in the custody of the federal government and a 7th lose their life following ICE detention. So it is an extraordinary measure.
Well, what does that mean will happen next? Will this independent monitor have to come back and report to the judge on what he or she has found? And aren't we talking about perhaps extended stays during that interim period?
That's my understanding. This independent monitor will be reporting back to the court. David, the judge sounded exasperated in her commentary in hearings this summer, saying that, the attorneys for the children in detention and the Trump administration appeared to be living in separate realities. And she's hoping that an independent monitor will be able to present the court with, real independent information about how long kids are staying in detention and what the conditions are.
Is there any sign that this is a calculated move on the part of immigration officials to keep families in detention so that they have to face this choice of whether or not to continue their stay or just give up the fight altogether?
Well, we know broadly that the Trump administration has been pushing a policy called mandatory detention. Now, that concept is being fought out in appeals courts across the country, but here in Texas in the Fifth Circuit, it has been upheld. So that has allowed the government to hold families, children, and immigrants writ large in detention for the length of their legal process, even if they are in a legal process. And, the conditions in immigration detention, we know from widespread reporting, are not good, and folks are electing to go home.
Lauren Villagran reported this story for the Marshall Project, and we will link to it so that you can dig more deeply at texasstandard.org. Lauren, thanks so much.
Thanks, David.
In a state like Texas with so many military families and veterans, what the military puts on the menu can become food for conversation well beyond the mess hall. And as Jay Price reports for the American Homefront Project, new kinds of warfare are now bringing new kinds of meals.
On the front lines of World War II, there were the famous canned sea rations with main courses like meat and vegetable stew and cans of dense crackers. In recent wars, there were the meals ready to eat, or MREs, with components packed into a tough plastic pouch and years of shelf life. Those are still widely used, but now
That's actually really good.
Yeah. A new ration designed for modern battlefields is starting to reach some units.
Very good. Have you tried this?
That's a squad of special operations soldiers trying the new close combat assault ration, which, like all things military, has an acronym, CCAR. They're taking a break in the middle of a pine forest at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, after a humid 8-hour slog testing their land navigation skills. And they're happy to get time to eat before their next task.
That might be one of the best snacks I've had.
The new rations are designed for conflicts in which getting supplies to small, widely dispersed units is made harder by tech-savvy opponents, like the current drone-infested front lines of the war in Ukraine, or fighting China across island chains in the Pacific. That kind of combat could mean going days without a chance for resupply, so making food lighter and smaller is crucial. Aaron Gaffney-Stomberg leads the Combat Feeding Division at DEVCOM Soldier Center in Natick, Massachusetts, which develops rations for all the services.
The ration platforms that were available were too large to meet that need. And so this development really came from that shift in defense strategy and the requirements that the user community had for the future.
The CCAR is the replacement for what's called the First Strike ration, which was designed for short missions lasting no more than 72 hours. 5 days of the new rations has the same volume as 3 days of first strikes. Gaffney-Stomberg said testing shows troops tend to take in more calories with the CCARs, which helps them perform better in missions that burn a lot of energy. That's partly because of the CCAR's fat levels and partly about their taste.
The warfighters did prefer some of the components or individual food items that were in the close combat assault ration compared to the first strike ration.
The latest science on sports nutrition was a starting point, but she said the Army had to go deeper, looking at differences in dietary needs between athletes and troops in combat, who are more likely to have additional stressors like sleep deprivation and chaotic environments. And it all had to be done in a way that made the CCAR palatable, because nutritional content doesn't matter if the troops aren't eating it. An informal sampling of the soldiers in the woods at Fort Bragg suggests it hits that goal.
I thought the burrito bowl was a lot better quality.
That's Nick, a sergeant who, because of his unit, can only be identified by his first name. He especially likes that the CCAR includes a lot of small components like bars and packets of trail mix.
So that way when you're moving through the field, you can pull those out and kind of keep them in a pocket, so it's easier nutrition per se.
Some in the group said they wished for less sugar, but a sergeant named Alexa said after her hard efforts that morning, the recipes seemed about right.
I needed the sugar. That has a lot of calories for days like this.
So what did you eat so far?
I ate the trail mix and the almond coconut nut bar. I also ate the cookie, oatmeal cookie.
As small and light as the CCAR is, the Army experts aren't done with trying to improve future field rations. Lately, they've been working with a production method called vacuum microwave drying. One result is a rectangle of compressed vegetables infused with honey mustard dressing that's been dubbed the salad bar. I'm Jay Price reporting.
That story was produced by the American Homefront Project, a public media collaboration covering American military life and veterans. Coming up, chow of a different sort and how Wi-Fi can make a world of difference for what's on Fido's menu. A little later, Texas Monthly's barbecue editor on that other smoked meat that doesn't get as much love as brisket and why it should. Coming up on 19 minutes past the hour, Texas Standard Time. Don't touch that dial.
Support for Texas Standard comes from Texas Mutual Insurance Company, a Texas-based workers' compensation provider committed to providing care and support for injured employees. More at texasmutual.com/TexansDeliver.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. More than a year after the catastrophic floods along the Guadalupe, the Hill Country is still rebuilding, but rebuilding doesn't always mean putting things back the way they once were. For some who lost homes or businesses, the question is whether to return to the river at all. Lorena Guillen knows that question intimately. She and her husband bought the Blue Oak RV Park in Ingram, hoping it would help fund their retirement. Next, they opened a honky-tonk restaurant, Howdy's Bar and Chill. Then came the weekend of July 4th, 2025. The Guadalupe swept away the RV park, and Lorena says she and her husband face the difficult choice of what next.
Oh, that was my house. I was sleeping right there. We had a full house in here. We had a great band. A lot of the people that died was here that night. It didn't start to drizzle until about 10:30 that night. And it was just a drizzle because the band was playing right here on the outside stage. So we had no way to think that that was coming. When I finally closed the restaurant and I left the last employee out, which was Julian Ryan, which he passed away as well. That's when it started raining really heavy, around 12:30. And I went home, took a shower, but I just couldn't sleep. It was the thundering, the lightning, the storm was very strong. So it came in 3 separate waves. The first one came in around 4 o'clock in the morning because one of my residents called 911 at 4:15 when she can hear the people screaming. And by 5 o'clock, it was 40 feet. Every 15 minutes, we had a new wave. So it was extremely powerful. We had a total of 28 RVs in here. We were able to evacuate 7. A lot of the RVers came out with nothing besides just shorts and maybe, their dog or their cat, and they had no clothes on. So I opened the restaurant so they can dry it out and get them some towels and got some T-shirts from the restaurant. And at that point, we had evacuated everybody safely. Then we were evacuated from the restaurant all the way to the church. And that's when we did a head count, and I knew exactly who we had missing. So at that point, a third wave came, and it went inside the restaurant. It came all the way up to here. The community was amazing. The community were here the same day. My friends, my customers, they came in and started helping clearing this as soon as the flood went down a little bit. Some people assumed that I was going to reopen an RV park, and knowing that there's nobody here, I'll be able to sleep.
The voice of business owner Lorena Guillen. She shared her story with Texas State student journalist Gretchen Butwood. Guillen said flooding this past July brought back difficult memories of the previous year's storm, but she's grateful the community was better prepared. Voices from the Hill Country floods and the aftermath at our website, texasstandard.org. And you are listening to the Texas Standard. A company that makes automated pet feeders is in the doghouse with some customers after problems that left some very good boys without their daily kibble. Users of Pet Libro feeders put up angry posts on Reddit saying their feeders weren't working and they were no longer able to monitor their pets remotely. Our tech expert Omar Gallaga joins us now with the dish on this pet feeding saga. And just a note here, our cat-owning producer Shelley Brisbane wrote this introduction for us. Make of that what you will. Omar, welcome back to the Standard.
Hey, I'm a cat owner too. Hi.
I was going to say, I don't know what she was trying to insulate me from or whatever. I love the puns. All right, so tell us about Pet Libro and their products. What exactly does this company offer?
Yeah, Pet Libro is a California pet technology company. They make products like automatic feeders, automatic litter boxes, fountains, and even cameras that you can monitor your pet when you're away from home. They had a good reputation up to now, but something just happened, and now their whole business is facing a lot of criticism from some of their customers. A week ago, they had a cloud issue, a cloud services problem that affected the app that would let its customers control these devices. Now, ordinarily, just a blip in the cloud service shouldn't be a huge problem, but customers were reporting that it was actually interrupting the automatic feeding of their pets. If you're traveling, if you're away from home and you have no other way to feed your pet, you've been relying on this device, then that's a huge problem. And the company said, that it had addressed the issue, but people were continuing to have problems. I'm still seeing people posting about issues they're having a week later.
The stakes here seem especially high. It's one thing if, I don't know, your pool robot won't take care of the leaves like it's supposed to, but it's quite another if you've gone away on a vacation or something and your dog's food is not being delivered on time.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, and that's what people have been pointing out. There's a whole Reddit subgroup devoted to the company, to Pet Libro, and that's been kind of the ongoing thread, the ongoing discussion is we trusted you with our pets, with the lives of our pets, with the health of our pets. Some of us are away from home, we're traveling, we have no backup, we have no way to go back and correct this. So it's been a very huge issue, and I think the other problem is that the company said it had resolved all the issues by the next day, and that appears not to be the case. And now customers feel like they're being gaslit by the company for saying that things are okay now, but they're continuing to have issues.
Is it known where Pet Libro is located? And, is there any sort of oversight here? How has the company responded?
Yeah, they're based out of California, and their line has been, we care, we're trying to fix this, we're resolving this, and we're investigating. But I think the point of contention is them saying that by the next day, it had been fully resolved, and that clearly is not the case. People were continuing to have feeders that were not dispensing, even though, you would think that there would be some sort of fail-safe locally, that even if the cloud services go down, it would still continue feeding locally. I have a pet feeder that operates that way, and I've never had an issue like this, and from a competing brand. But a family member of mine has Pet Libro products and was experiencing some of those issues last week. So it was widespread, a lot of their users, and now people are considering switching to other brands or taking or sending their devices back or trying to get a refund from retailers like Amazon.
Yeah, gosh, there's so much of a brand's reputation hanging on the thread of a Wi-Fi connection. You wrote about this last week for CNET. A lot's happened since, right?
Yeah, I think the blowback has continued to accelerate, and I think it also kind of draws a warning to, we rely on a lot of IoT products, so-called Internet of Things products in our homes, smart devices that do all these functions for us, but that a lot of them require internet connectivity or an app to function. And when that app goes out or that internet connection is not there, what do you do then? So I think it points to kind of a potential over-reliance on some of these products.
Omar Gallaga writes about tech and pet feeding drama for CNET, and he joins us here each week. Omar, thanks so much for that update, and we'll look forward to checking you out online.
I sure appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Support for Texas Standard comes from UT San Antonio, a Carnegie Tier 1 public research institution, and designated as Texas's National Institute on Aging Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. More at ambition.utsa.edu.
Live from the Texas Newsroom, I'm Shelby Rose. Groups opposing the construction of border barriers in Big Bend National Park and surrounding areas took their message to a Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission meeting yesterday. KUT's Mose Bushell reports they told parks officials to use their power to keep construction out of state parkland.
Before the hearing, protesters gathered in front of State Parks headquarters, played music, and listed reasons for opposing barrier construction. Patrick Zuberbuehler's family has ranched in Val Verde County, just east of the Big Bend, since the 1800s. He said the barriers would fragment the family ranch and threaten archaeological sites.
Whatever it's worth, I sent President Trump an email and invited him to come visit. I don't think it would happen, but I said I have to try. And people were like, well, it's the government. They're going to win. I'm like, but we are the government. They work for us. And for me to play possum would be tragic.
Earlier this week, federal officials announced a pause in construction in Big Bend National Park. Speakers at the hearing said that pause did not meet their demands for an end to construction in state parks and throughout the region. Paul Foster, the chair of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Commission, told speakers he and the commission generally agreed with their message. I'm Mose Bouchel in Austin.
Data center executives were at the state capitol yesterday defending their industry to a group of lawmakers at the state house.
Our projects represent over $5 billion of investment in the state.
Based on a recent PwC report, it's estimated that the data center industry supported nearly 429,000 jobs across the Texas economy in 2024.
Proud to say that in 2026 alone, QTS is creating over 40,000 high-paying jobs across the United States.
Lawmakers also heard hours of testimony from residents pushing back against the rapid growth of data centers as they consider recommendations for next year's legislative session. Governor Abbott wants public schools to reduce the number of workers in administrative offices. He says it's part of an effort to move more money to teachers and students.
The legislation I'm proposing today will ensure that school districts will spend at least 70% of their funds in the classroom, not on administrative expense, staff, or bureaucracy.
Abbott singled out Austin and El Paso ISDs as schools that spend too much money on administrators despite the fact that they are declining enrollments. An extreme heat warning is in effect for large parts of North Texas. It could get as high as 106 degrees in some places, with the heat index making it feel even hotter. I'm Shelby Rose in the Texas Newsroom.
Support for these Texas headlines comes from Half Price Books, a Texas-bred new and used bookstore, proudly supporting public media and sustainability by keeping books, music, and other media in circulation. Store locations and more information at hpb.com.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. You know, brisket may get the headlines, but today we're rolling out the red carpet for a different barbecue star. Daniel Vaughn has eaten 51 smoked half chickens since January. Count them. Crispy ones, saucy ones, birds cooked over coals, others finished in the fryer, all in search of Texas's barbecue best. And the chickens have been smoked now. The envelopes are sealed. And wait a minute. Did I say smoke? Well, you know the good word around here. Where there's smoke, there's Daniel Vaughn, barbecue editor of Texas Monthly. Daniel, welcome back.
Good to be with you, David.
Shall we call these the Oscars of Texas barbecue chicken? No, we should call them the Daniels of Texas barbecue chicken. What do you think?
I mean, I'll go with it. But yeah, this is, I was trying to crown the best.
I know you cringe at the idea of being sort of the ultimate arbiter of good taste in barbecue, but I know you have good taste too, so let's just lean into that. Any caveats or mea culpas you want to get out of the way before we start handing out the envelopes and having some fun here?
Well, I do want to say there were a number of chicken quarters that I really enjoyed, but this is about half chickens. It was about looking at how well you can do the dark meat and the white meat, and how well you can get that skin cooked down and get it nice and crispy.
Fair enough. All right, our first category is best smoked and fried chicken. Wait a minute, this sounds like two categories. Did we get the envelopes mixed up here? What is smoked and fried?
No, this is the best way to do it, baby.
How do you do that?
Well, so you know, both of these places here. This is Hellberg Barbecue, and then we've got Mimsey's Craft Barbecue in Crockett. Hellberg is just outside of Waco, and you know they smoke it just like you would smoke any regular half chicken, right? And then they just undersmoke it a little bit. They undercook it a little bit because when you order it, then they drop it into hot oil. And they finish it off. They finish cooking it, and they get that skin super crisp. So it's still bubbling by the time it gets onto your tray and is headed your way. And then give it a final dusting. At Hellberg Barbecue, they give it a nice dusting of their really finely powdered seasoning. And then at Mimsey's, they actually dip it into a jerk sauce that they make before it comes out to your table.
Now, folks, if you're listening at home and you want to keep track of who's who and what's what, we're going to have the entire list over at texasstandard.org, so hang tight. Let's move on to juiciest barbecue chicken. The envelope, please, and the winner of this year's Daniel.
Regal's Barbecue Company in Houston. And by juicy, I mean, you know, the fact is, like, when I cut into a half chicken, I'm usually separating that leg quarter away from the breast. And like that pool of juice right there is going to, or lack thereof, is a good indicator of whether that chicken is going to be juicy throughout. And at Regal's, I mean, it's just pouring over over that butcher paper that's on the tray. So this is a juicy chicken.
Regal's in Houston. Let's move on to the next category, Texas barbecue chicken. The most flavorful rub. Who gets the nod for number one here?
Yeah, this is no simple salt and pepper. They've got a lot of fun going on at Blood Bros in Bel Air, in the Houston area. They use a togarashi seasoning with some red pepper and ginger, orange peel, and sesame seeds. So they smoke that chicken and then they finish it off. They finish off the skin with that seasoning. So it's super bright. It's got a little spice. It's just great.
What you say super bright? What's giving it that brightness?
Those citrus notes from the orange peel.
Oh, nice.
Which is something that's usually not added into, barbecue flavors.
Very nice, very nice. Our next category is Best Direct Heat Chicken. Do we really need this category? What are you even looking for here, Daniel? How do you know it's cooked over direct heat?
The flavor and the smell of direct heat barbecue is unmistakable. Taste it once, you will be looking for that flavor over and over. And that is the flavor of fat dripping down onto coals. And then it gets brought back up into the meat as basically fat smoke. And that's a whole lot different flavor than wood smoke, right? So direct heat barbecue just has a different flavor, and the chickens as well have a different flavor too.
Boy, I had no idea. All right, so who's the winner here?
Surprise one, because I love Snow's Barbecue in Lexington, and I love the chicken that they do there. But I was more wowed by Teddy's Barbecue in Westlaco, down near the Rio Grande.
Teddy's in Westlaco, that best direct heat chicken, and you got to try it if you haven't before. You probably have, you just didn't know what you were eating there. Moving along, we have to skip some categories because time is eating us alive. Best value. Who gives you the most bird for the buck?
Well, Kalachny Barbecue in Hallettsville. They are only open on Saturdays and Sundays. I love that place. They do great pork steaks and sausages, but their chicken is phenomenal, and it's only $6 for a half chicken. And I've eaten half chickens that were $30, sometimes $40 in this search. So finding one that was just $6 was, that was a good find right there.
In the category of Best Barbecue Editor in the USA, we're talking to the winner. Where there's smoke, there's Daniel Vaughn, Barbecue Editor of Texas Monthly. There's much more chicken in the bucket, and we'll link to it. The full list of winners, that is, over at texasstandard.org. Daniel, save us a pulley bone.
You betcha.
Support for Where There's Smoke comes from H-E-B, whose Texas Tough barbecue foil and pink butcher paper help seal in moisture and flavor, keeping food temperature steady. H-E-B. Here, everything's better.
It's the Texas Standard. I'm Laura Rice. When folks think about San Antonio, the Alamo probably immediately comes to mind. Or perhaps the riverwalk, tacos, maybe those all-stars, the Spurs. But the city is also a leader in fungus research. Texas Public Radio's Bonnie Petrie has more.
If a doctor has a patient who's infected with a fungus they don't recognize, they're probably going to send it to UT Health San Antonio's fungus testing laboratory.
As a reference lab, we really see the unique things that a lot of people have not seen before, and it comes to us on a fairly routine basis.
Nathan Wiederhold has run the lab for more than a decade.
And since I started as the director, we've had the opportunity to be involved in the description of at least 60 new fungal species. These are things that have not been seen before, causing disease in humans. And we were part of the team really taking a first stab at describing them, not only what they look like under the microscope, but also their DNA sequences and then the disease that they were causing in the individual.
Over the last 20 years, fungal pathogens have become a growing threat.
We're seeing emergence of a lot of different fungal infections, and several of them are also resistant to drugs that we use to treat patients with these types of infections. And that has put us into a bind with certain patients because we've run out of treatment options.
Wiederhold's lab is playing a pivotal role in getting new medications to market. They test new compounds for effectiveness against their large library of samples. Between identifying new fungi and testing new meds, Wiederhold says this is interesting, important work.
It's never a dull day in the fungus testing lab, and that's really a blessing.
That's Science and Medicine from UT Health San Antonio and Texas Public Radio. I'm Bonnie Petrie.
A video posted by Darius Williams, a teacher at Wheatley High School in Houston ISD, went viral last week after he shared his students struggled with basic skills. A few days later, the school earned an A rating from the Texas Education Agency. The stark disconnect of the two assessments of Wheatley High School has raised questions about the effectiveness of the state takeover and spurred debate over broader concerns about how much testing can measure student success. Houston Public Media's Bianca Seward spoke with students, education experts, and state-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles to understand what's happening at Wheatley High School.
The Wheatley High School Band welcomed students, teachers, and alumni as they packed the auditorium last week to celebrate the school's first ever A rating from the Texas Education Agency. State-appointed Superintendent Mike Miles attended the boisterous bash and praised the school for their achievement.
You all have made history, and there's going to be a lot of celebration here.
The A rating is a remarkable feat for Wheatley. For years, the 5th Ward campus could not earn a passing grade from the state. After 5 consecutive years of failing, the campus alone triggered a state takeover of the entire district that began in 2023.
You are the example of what students can do when you believe in them and you support them in the right way to reach their dreams. Thank you and congratulations, everybody.
But while Wheatley students basked in the glow of their A rating, a conversation online cast the school in a very different and far harsher light. Just days before, Darius Williams, a first-year uncertified career and technical education teacher at Wheatley, took to social media to broadcast concerns about his senior students, who he said struggled with basic literacy skills.
This is only day 2, and I have seniors who simply cannot read and seniors who cannot write.
The clip quickly circulated online, racking up nearly 5 million views. Miles responded bluntly to the claims in the video.
Is that new information? 4 years ago, Wheatley was an F. There were many more students who could not read at grade level or do math at grade level. That is why we're here. That's why this is serious.
Some students at Wheatley pushed back on claims kids couldn't read or write. Others acknowledged they had friends they knew who struggled with both. But all of them took issue with Williams' choice to put his concerns online and generalize the abilities of all Wheatley students.
I'm just playing. He should never said that. He should never said that about our seniors. What video? Because our seniors can read.
As Williams' viral video drew millions of views, scrutiny of his past business practices followed. Williams has been accused by the Attorney General of Georgia and the Better Business Bureau of accepting payments and then not delivering goods or services. He has since deleted the clip and declined an interview with Houston Public Media. The video renewed concerns over the effectiveness of the state takeover. It prompted many to ask how Wheatley could garner an A rating if some students could not read at grade level. And it also spurred debate over how much the TEA's accountability rating can indicate the actual success of the students on campus. The TEA's accountability ratings are largely determined by a campus's STAR scores. That's the annual assessment given to students at the end of each school year. The exams are deeply unpopular within the state and are being revamped for this upcoming year. Education experts warn about leaning too heavily on standardized testing to measure student success or achievement. The tests, they say, provide a narrow look at how students are actually performing. Jack Schneider leads the Center for Education Policy at the University of Massachusetts at Amherst.
So standardized tests in math and English don't make any claim on students being critical thinkers or engaged, citizens, members of our society. The standardized test as we know it is primarily a machine-scored multiple choice test. And that really narrows down the kinds of knowledge and skills that you're going to be able to assess.
Wheatley High School's steady improvement on the STAR score may have been the main component behind its improved rating. But though the scores improved, the test results still paint a concerning picture. This spring, only 62% of Wheatley students who were tested passed the English 1 exam. Just 63% passed the English 2 exam. Additionally, the number of students taking the STAR English exams at Wheatley has dropped considerably since the takeover, which means the picture of student achievement through STAR scores may be from a much more narrow pool. Michael Jackson is a junior at the school. He was furious over Darius Williams' video.
Why would you go on social media and embarrass the whole kids like that? That's not right.
Jackson said Williams was lying when he claimed Wheatley students can't read or write, but also shared that while he can read, at 17 he still struggles with longer and more difficult vocabulary. He says he's currently repeating English 1.
The only words that I get wrong is like the big words. That's the only words that mess me up, is the big words.
Placido Gomez is a former high school math teacher and an elected Houston ISD trustee, which has been currently sidelined for the state-appointed board of managers during the takeover. He says it's a reality that some students may not be able to read or write, but he's concerned the state is prioritizing higher STAR scores over a fuller education.
And so if that's the main focus, if that's the only thing that schools are incentivized to focus on, they're just going to miss out on more book reading, being able to understand great literature, and problems that Mr. Williams talked about in that video will continue to persist.
As debate continues over what accountability ratings really say about student achievement, Houston ISD's gains have put the district on track to exit the state takeover this year. I'm Bianca Seward in Houston.
There's more Texas Standard just ahead, and you can stay connected with the Texas Standard anytime over at texasstandard.org.
Support for Texas Standard comes from TrialMed, conducting clinical research for over 30 years. Info on current trials in Texas at trialmed.com.
Is the Texas Standard. I'm David Brown. 2 years into Houston ISD's state takeover, the state-appointed superintendent, Mike Miles, announced a major achievement. According to the state ratings that recently dropped, there are no more F-rated schools in the district. But new reporting from the Houston Chronicle found that some of the rating increases were not related to Miles' reforms or better test scores. Instead, it appeared to come about because of HISD's use of a new, rapidly expanding option in Texas's accountability system, college prep courses. Here to tell us more, Claire Partain, who covers Houston ISD for the Chronicle. Claire, welcome.
Hi, good morning. Glad to be here.
Great to have you. Tell us more about these college prep courses.
Yeah, so these really started a little bit before the pandemic, and then really exploded during COVID as students were falling behind. And they're really designed to get students up to speed who are behind in reading and math, so that they don't have to take remedial courses in college, which students don't get credit for when they're in college, and kind of a waste of time.
Are these online only or what?
So the most popular option by far, which is Texas College Bridge, is online, and it's students go at their own pace and pass a series of kind of levels to complete the course.
On the face of it, it sounds like these would be pretty effective if students are learning something in these prep courses. Doesn't that count for something?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's part of why the state really embraced it, and a lot of school districts really embraced it as a way to get students ready for college. And we started reporting on this around a year ago when my former colleague Megan Menchaca caught wind that the Texas Education Agency was going to do its first kind of check-in on these college prep courses to see how effective they had been for students. And that's when it turned out that they weren't. For most offerings, including the most popular one, students were still having to take remedial courses in college. So it wasn't working in the way it was intended.
I'm misunderstanding something then. If students are not doing well with these college prep courses, how is that in some way helping grades at some Houston schools?
Right. So that goes back to the state's accountability system. So every year the state gives schools and school districts A through F ratings, and those are mostly based on testing scores. But in high school, they'll also grade campuses based on college, career, and military readiness, which is normally called CCMR. So schools are under a lot of pressure to perform well in the rating system, right, to avoid a state takeover, that's what's been happening in HISD for several years now. And so they can earn that CCMR point through a lot of different ways. So that would be advanced placement classes, dual credit courses, But college prep courses are also an option. So schools can kind of enroll as many students they'd like in these college prep courses and earn that college credit, which then can raise their overall ratings.
So it doesn't matter how well the student performs in these college prep courses. The fact that they are participating in these college prep courses, that's enough to boost the standing of a school?
They need to complete the courses. So it's more about completion than it is the final grade for those classes. And so those courses have a really high completion rate. Most students are able to complete them.
Well, what are experts saying about what this data says about the progress HISD has made during the state takeover?
Yeah. So the reason we wanted to look at HISD, as you mentioned, was Superintendent Mike Miles had said last year there were 0 F-rated schools under the state takeover. And so when we looked at HISD's high schools, we found that half of them would have dropped by 1 letter grade if not for these courses, which the state has found ineffective. And that included all of the new education system campuses, which are kind of at the center of Miles reforms, and they've been targeted for turnaround. So, yeah, I mean, experts are saying that the use of these classes, kind of leaning on these classes to boost accountability ratings, it's not helping students. It's more about raising the ratings without actually finding pathways that can get students ready for college.
Has the district responded to your findings?
Not as of yet. They send out a weekly for the record email, and I think there was some context there. But yeah, I'd love to talk to them more about this and hope to. One important thing to note is I don't think that this is something that's unique to HISD. We focused on it because that's what we write about, and they're under the state takeover, but I think there's been an explosion statewide of enrollment in these courses. And so I think it's important context on why these courses have skyrocketed and maybe why for some families, these high schools have seen rapidly improving scores, even when on the ground, it doesn't seem like much has changed.
So when a student takes one of these courses, how did the Texas Education Agency come to the conclusion that they really weren't helpful?
Yeah, the main metric was that students were still having to take these remedial courses in college. And the reason we want it, as a state, want students to not take remedial courses in college is because students are likely to drop out, much more likely to drop out if they're in these courses. They don't receive credit, and so they're paying for courses that don't lead towards a degree. And so if these college prep courses weren't getting students out of remedial classes, then they're not doing their one most important job. So that was the metric they found.
Is there any indication that these students are sort of being pushed into taking these courses by counselors or by the registrar's office in an attempt to boost the way a school performs in these annual assessments?
Yeah, so one thing we really wanted to do in this story was to ask students about these courses, and maybe they felt that they really were helping them. So we talked to several dozen students across different campuses. A few of them told me point blank that counselors told them to take it for the CCMR point, to get that credit for their school. Others said they had already taken other college readiness classes, so they really didn't need to be enrolled in mass. As you know, some said that all seniors were taking these college prep courses, for instance. Others said they rushed through it in a few hours just to get it done. And then still others said, that they still had to take that remedial coursework in college.
So counselors saying, in effect, it doesn't really matter whether or not you get anything out of this. It's going to help the school if you take it.
Yeah, that seems to be the case.
Claire Partain covers Houston ISD for the Houston Chronicle. We're going to have a link to this very interesting reporting over at texasstandard.org. Claire, thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Well, we're out of time for the big broadcast, but the news continues 24/7. You know where, over at texasstandard.org. We're going to be back here tomorrow. We're going to have a terrific show and get caught up on the week that was in Texas politics. Our producers and reporters include Sarah Ash, Shelley Brisbane, Michael Marks, and Sean Saldana. Raul Alonso is our assistant digital editor. Leah Scarpelli is our director. And Renee Chavez is our technical director this week. Texas Standard summer interns include Portia Goins and Charlie Sharp.
Philanthropic support for Texas Standard comes from Casey and Scott O'Hare, the Winkler Family Foundation, Lynn Dobson and Greg Woldridge, Adrian Killam, the George Huntington Family, and the Cynthia and George Mitchell Foundation.